Recent events within the National Security Council have culminated in significant personnel changes at the highest levels. Sources confirmed on Thursday that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and his principal deputy, Alex Wong, have been dismissed from their positions. Reports suggest these departures may precede further adjustments within the NSC staff, and President Donald Trump is anticipated to address the matter publicly, signaling a decisive shift following weeks of speculation. These developments trace back to a specific incident in March of this year, which brought scrutiny upon the administration's internal communication protocols. The controversy began when Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic, inadvertently gained access to a secure Signal group chat. This chat included senior figures such as Waltz, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and occurred during discussions regarding potential military actions against Houthi targets in Yemen. This breach, although acknowledged by Waltz, who accepted responsibility, set in motion a chain of events and responses that require careful examination. Publicly acknowledging the mishap, Mr. Waltz accepted full responsibility for the unintentional inclusion of the journalist, terming the incident embarrassing and pledging an internal investigation into how the security oversight occurred. This acknowledgement followed the publication of specific details from the Signal exchange by The Atlantic. The revealed messages documented Mr. Waltz initiating a principals group focused on Houthi coordination, specifically mentioning activity over the next 72 hours, and assigning his deputy, Alex Wong, the task of assembling a Tiger team at the deputy's level following a Situation Room meeting. Importantly, the administration consistently maintained throughout this period that no classified information was compromised or transmitted via the Signal application during these exchanges. The military operations against Houthi targets subsequently took place on March 15, 2025. Initial responses from the White House, articulated by Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt in late March, framed the Signal chat security issue as effectively resolved. At that time, the official stance was that the case was considered closed, accompanied by public affirmations of Mr. Waltz's value to the national security team, despite the acknowledged procedural lapse. This posture contrasted somewhat with earlier commentary from President Trump himself. Speaking from Air Force One on April 3, the president confirmed that some National Security Council personnel had indeed been dismissed following the Atlantic report, though characterizing the number as small at that stage. He framed these prior removals based on performance, suitability, or loyalty concerns, while simultaneously expressing continued confidence in the overall NSC team and citing success regarding the Houthi situation. The eventual dismissal of both Mr. Waltz and Mr. Wong marks a clear escalation from the administration's late March position and the president's early April remarks. The time elapsed between the initial incident, the declaration of the matter being concluded, and these high-level departures indicates a reassessment or evolution in the administration's handling of the situation's fallout. Connecting President Trump's stated criteria for personnel actions relating to performance, capability, and allegiance to these specific dismissals suggests the final decision may encompass considerations extending beyond the singular communications security failure. The timing is also notable, occurring shortly after the administration marked its 100th day in office and following a cabinet meeting on Wednesday which Mr. Waltz attended. External political reactions quickly followed the confirmation, with figures like House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries remarking on the potential for further changes within the administration's national security structure. This sequence of events, from the initial leak to the eventual high-profile removals, underscores the fluid dynamics within the NSC and the administration's approach to personnel management following operational security incidents. Yet this ultimate outcome stands in noticeable contrast to the explicit messaging deployed just weeks prior. Following the initial controversy, President Trump himself had defended Mr. Waltz, and the White House press secretary formally stated the matter was considered resolved internally, even highlighting Mr. Waltz's continued importance to the national security apparatus. This divergence between the administration's earlier public posture of closure and support and the eventual removal of the national security advisor and his deputy invites closer scrutiny. It suggests that while the Signal chat incident served as the immediate catalyst for public discussion and internal review, the final decision may reflect a broader assessment aligned with the president's previously articulated personnel standards. Those standards mentioned by President Trump on April 3 encompassed performance, perceived capability, and significantly, loyalty. The handling of the communications breach, or perhaps other factors evaluated concurrently, could have led to a determination that certain individuals no longer met these presidential benchmarks, irrespective of earlier statements intended to stabilize the situation publicly. Therefore, the dismissals, while directly following the leak controversy, might be interpreted not solely as a reaction to that specific operational security lapse, but potentially as the culmination of ongoing personnel evaluations where the incident played a critical, perhaps decisive, role. The established credentials of Mr. Waltz, including his military and congressional background, did not ultimately prevent this outcome, highlighting the demanding nature of the administration's internal criteria. This complex interplay between a specific security event, public narrative management, and underlying personnel judgments illustrates the operational realities within the current national security structure. It points toward a decision-making process where initial public positions can evolve based on internal assessments or shifting presidential priorities. Delving deeper into the implications, the sequence reveals potential vulnerabilities not just in secure communications protocols, but also in the perceived stability of high-level appointments within the national security framework. The transition from public backing and declaring the issue closed to the eventual ouster of the National Security Advisor himself suggests that internal evaluations can override prior public assurances, potentially affecting morale and operational continuity among remaining staff. The fact that Mr. Wong, the principal deputy tasked within the leaked signal message with forming a Tiger team for operational coordination, was also dismissed alongside Mr. Waltz points to accountability being assigned directly related to the functions highlighted by the incident. This underscores the critical importance placed on flawless execution and secure handling of sensitive, albeit unclassified, coordination efforts at the highest levels. Furthermore, the president's explicit linkage of earlier, less prominent dismissals to broad criteria like loyalty and job performance creates an environment where personnel may perceive tenure as contingent not only on avoiding specific errors, but also on continuously meeting subjective standards of allegiance and effectiveness. This dynamic can influence internal collaboration and risk assessment within the NSC structure. The entire episode, from the initial breach to the delayed but decisive personnel actions, serves as a case study in crisis management and internal discipline within this administration. It highlights a willingness to revise initial stances and take significant action against senior officials, even after periods of apparent resolution, signaling a low tolerance for perceived shortcomings in critical national security roles. Looking more broadly, these personnel actions underscore the president's direct and decisive influence over the national security apparatus, reinforcing that operational security and perceived alignment with presidential expectations are non-negotiable criteria for senior roles. The consequence is a clear message to all serving within the administration regarding the exacting standards applied, potentially shaping future conduct and communication practices within the NSC and related agencies. The resulting turnover at the highest echelons of the National Security Council inevitably necessitates adjustments in interagency processes and relationships. As the central hub for coordinating policy among departments like state, defense, and the intelligence community, shifts in NSC leadership can introduce periods of recalibration, potentially influencing the rhythm and efficiency of policy formulation and execution, while also being closely monitored by international partners and adversaries for signs of instability or changes in policy direction.